Hi, everyone. It's Carrie from Live Accessible, and welcome to this live stream. And it would be awesome if you guys could join the conversation in the live chat. I get a lot of questions during the live chat and in comments and afterwards about how you can access the live chat. And so if you are a low vision user, if you're on the phone, you can actually access the live chat. It's right under the video, and there is YouTube automatically puts it in top chat, but if you change it to live chat, there's a little sort button there. You will be able to see all the live chats that everybody has sent, and from there there's a little edit box at the very bottom where you can type up your messages so we can see them, and you can put your questions in there as well. And if you are a screen reader user, you can do the same thing. It should pop up automatically whether you're using Android or iOS, and the edit field is going to be right at the very bottom. And if you're on desktop too, for low vision users, it's directly to the right of the video. And if you are using a screen reader like NVDA or JAWS, you should be able to go to the next edit field, and it should say something like say something, and that is the live chat area. And anyway, today we are going to talk about Android. And today I'm joined by the hosts of the Blind Android Users podcast to talk all things Android. Especially in the US, most blind people gravitate to iPhone because that's what they're familiar with and that's what people really recommend. But there's so many people in United States and all around the world that actually use Android. So we're going to talk about why do we use Android, and share a little bit about our Android journeys and what's so good about Android, but also what's not so good about Android, and what do we wish could be improved on Android. But first, let's introduce the hosts of the Blind Android Users podcast. And Warren, why don't you start off and talk about who you are and what you guys do?
Thank you so much, Carrie. I'm Warren from the state of Washington, and I'm here with my boys from the Blind Android Users podcast. And I'm sorry we got a couple of girls on our show that are not here today, or else the balance could almost be there, three girls and 4 boys. But so we got 4 boys here, and my members are Austin from Mumbai, hiding somewhere from the Taj Mahal in the Austin.
Hello to all our viewers and listeners of Live Accessible. This is Austin Pinto from Mumbai, and thank you to Carrie for inviting all of us.
And hiding in the foggy London, Ed.
Hi everyone, I hope everyone's doing well.
Standing high on that Eiffel Tower, Yannick Plus here. Yannick.
Hi everyone, I'm not quite on the top of the Eiffel Tower, but very close.
Thank you so much, Carrie. So that's our crew, and we're glad to be here on Live Accessible, and it's a great show. I've been watching you for quite a while, and so thankful that we are actually talking live on your show.
Well, thanks so much, Warren, for those introductions. And for everybody watching, in the description after this live stream, you guys can check out the Blind Android Users podcast. It's just blindandroidusers.com. Is that correct? That is right. But the link is down in the description, and the YouTube channel that they also post their podcast on is also available there. And you guys are pretty much on every podcast platform, or could you share where people could listen to your podcast?
Austin, you want to take that away? You are the master of this kind of thing, you know?
We are on every podcast platform available. You can also listen to us on smart speakers, if you have a Victor reader device that is capable of connecting to internet, you can listen to us using that also. So we are available everywhere.
Yeah, one of the podcast platforms did chuck a bunch of money at us to go exclusive, but we're more democratic and universal than that, so we turned it down.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And so, what exactly do you guys cover on your podcast specifically?
We have a range of features, really. We've tried to put some structure around the podcast so that people can find different bits they might be interested in. So we have a section where we try and cover off topics that people might want to familiarize themselves with if they've just moved around Android. We call that Android Basics. So in that, so far, we've looked at things like the Play Store. We've looked at the home screen, how you manipulate things on Android. We've looked at settings, a whole bunch of stuff really. Cameras. This week it was browsers and web views. We then go a little bit in depth normally with an in focus section. That might be a demo, it might be an interview with an app developer, it might be a review of a device. This weekend, one of our regular contributors will be unboxing a Samsung S21 Ultra. We have an app of the week section where, again, that's obviously app focused. We like to understand how people got into Android, and you talked about Android stories. We have a segment about that, and we've also got an occasional series two occasional series really, where we get into the depth of Android and how you might do more technical things like ROMing or rooting a device, which Austin leads. And then Mariam, who's not here today, she's been doing a series on the second Android screen reader commentary. So we try and have different things for different folks. You mentioned the YouTube channel there, and Austin diligently chops up those segments so that people can find what they want. We're chapter supported anyway, but that those segments exists for those people who want to consume the content on YouTube.
Yes, I think
That's a beautiful summary of our podcast, and I couldn't have put it better the way Ed did. I
And if
almost
people-
call him my son.
And if people don't want to listen to long episodes, they can just listen to short clips of each episode, and they are organized nicely in playlists, which I've done, and it's very easy to chop these episodes up.
Well, that's awesome. I think, Austin, you're doing great work with that, since maybe people are just looking for specific information, or they want to follow a certain series that you guys do, like the Android Basics. It's good that they start with that, and they could listen to the whole podcast too, but they also can go back and listen to specific parts, and when they need to just sit down with their actual phone and go through it. So I think that's awesome. So let's start with Warren. Why do you use an Android phone?
That's a very good story, Carrie. I guess I am the Android evangelist, and being an evangelist, I have to definitely use the Android device. And all that's joking apart, though, I actually got into Android back in 2010 or 2011, I should say. And at the time, I didn't quite like it because there were things that were not accessible. Actually, a lot wasn't accessible. I almost threw that LG Optimus out the window. That was what I had. And then, later on that year, I got something called the Motorola Razr Max, MAXX. And that kind of changed my world because that came with gingerbread. And then shortly it got updated to ice cream. And ever since then, I dumped off my Fruitvale device. That's my iOS iPad, which I had at the time, the very first iOS iPad. And I had
Before you continue, Warren, give us a little bit of an idea of when this started. How many years ago was that?
This was back in 2011.
Okay.
Now, prior to that, I was using the iPad. That was my first dipping of my toes into the iOS.
Okay.
The one I gladly call a Fruitvale. And so I've been hearing about Android for quite a while, and I thought I would give it a try. And so I went out and got that LG Optimus. I actually thought it was going to be a great experience. It turned out not to be, because I just could not access anything at all. It was so inaccessible until I learned about something called the ice-free shell, and that kind of sort of helped things a little bit. But when I moved on to that Razr Max, later on that summer of 2011, then it was like day and night. Gingerbread was a lot better than the Froyo that my LG Optimus was running on. And then that summer or toward the fall, it was updated to the ice cream sandwich. And that changed the whole perspective. And now, from that moment on, I was stuck on Android. You couldn't pay me enough to go back.
So, what about you, Austin? What was a little bit about your Android journey?
So the reason for me using Android is because actually, like, India is like a developing country almost, so iPhones are expensive here, and the variations of hardware that we get here is enormous. We can get phones from as low as $100. Yes, you don't get top of the line specs with them, but you get a pretty decent phone which people can start using Android with. So that is why I use Android, and it's customizable. So my Android journey started from 2009 or 2010. My first phone was a Galaxy Duo, and the model number was GTB 5512, and that is the first phone I hard bricked while flashing a ROM. So that phone had Android 2.3.6, and then from there I straight away went to Moto G2. I used it a little bit. Then I went to Spice Dream phone. It was called the Spice Dream Uno. It was an Android 1 phone, and it came out with 4.4, and I think it got updated to 6. Then I went to Asus Zenfone M1 Pro, which came out with 7 or 8. Then I got the OnePlus 60, and then I got the OnePlus Nord. And now I'm stuck with OnePlus because I like the device, but now I'm a little fed up with them because they are offering very limited 5G bands. So that is a reason. That is my Android journey.
Okay, what about you, Ed?
So I switched full time to Android relatively late last year. Since 2010, I'd been using iOS predominantly. I think I had every phone from the 3GS to the 10, aside from the 4, the 6S, and the 8. So I tended to upgrade quite a lot. I'd tried Android off and on in that period. My first Android phone was the Google Nexus 4. I didn't get on particularly well with the angular gestures. Either I was inept or the screens weren't particularly forgiving at the time. I then got a Sony Xperia XZ1 Compact in 2017, which I really liked. But for some reason, I didn't put in the miles to make it my full-time phone, so I kind of stuck with iPhones. Then last year, we have got 5G, albeit patchily, here in London. Apple didn't have a 5G phone, and I figured that even if they did, I wouldn't want to pay the price they would want for it. So I got a Samsung Galaxy A90 5G. I then unfortunately smashed its screen on a bollard being put in place to stop trucks ramming pedestrian crossings in terrorist attacks. I hadn't been into work for a while, so it had all been newly reconfigured. So that phone died, even though it had a screen protector. And like Austin, I've now switched to OnePlus. I have a OnePlus 8, but I've been using Android full time for 15 or 16 months now.
And you, Yannick? What was your journey like?
Okay, yeah. What I did start my Android journey with, I think it was a Galaxy Nexus, if I'm correct. So it was already a Pixel Nexus-like device on Android 4.0, then 4.1, and then I tend to follow the mood with new devices. I tried Samsung devices for quite a while, Galaxy S6, S8, S9, and then at some point I get back to Pixel devices quite recently, actually, with the Pixel 4a, which is my daily driver actually right now, and well, that's pretty much about it regarding my journey, I think.
Okay, and I want to, before I share a little bit about my Android journey, I want to know, are you all mostly screen reader users? Do you guys have any site, or do you guys ever use the magnification, or are you just screen reader users? Warren?
I'm primarily a screen reader user. I do have a little bit of sight to where I can see, but I cannot read. However, I can see the print and all of that. So it's useless to me. However, though, I try to practice some of those magnification gestures, and I really like what I see in Android 12, the Android 12 preview that I have. And I think that's those who are blind or have some sight and would like to use that feature. I really like that because one could magnify just the part that they want to magnify, and I like that implementation as to the previous versions of Android that we had. And so I don't use magnification, but just primarily an Android screen reader user, TalkBack.
Okay. Ed?
In this case.
Now, I'm a screen reader user exclusively. I have no light perception.
Okay, and Austin? I don't know what happened to Austin. What
I'm
about
also
you?
I'm also screen reader user, but I don't have, and I have some light perception. I mean, a lot of it. I can differentiate between light and darkness, but I don't use magnification.
Okay, and Yannick?
Same as Warren and Austin, I would say. So very
Okay.
few light perception and 100% screen reader user.
Yes, I wanted to kind of point that out and emphasize that, because a lot of people that I have come across, when they think about a totally blind or somebody who's reliant on a screen reader, they automatically think that a person has to use an iPhone or an iOS device. And so it's a way to show that there's 4 people right here, and there's definitely a lot more out there, both in the US and, again, around the world, that are totally blind or just screen reader reliant, that use Android as their daily driver. And for me, as a low vision user, I am much more comfortable with Android. I have made a couple videos. I haven't gone super in depth with that, and I hope to do that in another video. But for me and my Android journey, like a short version of it is, first of all, I didn't even want a smartphone. I really didn't want to even go that route. I was thinking, I just need a phone to make phone calls. I just need a phone to make messages. Why on earth would I want or even think about getting a smartphone? Which is funny because I love technology, but I guess it's just part of my personality that if everybody's starting to go in one direction, I'm like, I want to go in the opposite direction. But my dad, he got an iPhone, and he would show me his iPhone, and my mom, she got an iPhone, and my mom is definitely not technology savvy. And even my sister, who is like, she doesn't even know how to use her phone half the time, but she got an iPhone, and she was showing me, oh, you can double tap with 3 fingers and magnify, and I'm like, huh, how is it that my sister has a smartphone and I don't? And maybe I should reconsider this whole thing. And before that, we actually had a tablet, an Android tablet that was free. It was it had a SIM card and it was free. But the thing is that it had Android 4.2. Not Android 4.2.2, but Android 4.2. It started out with 4.1, and that did not have the Android magnification yet. So I wanted to throw that tablet out the window because I could not see it. And even if you put the font large enough, it just didn't cut it for me. And I was thinking about an iPhone, but the screens were so small.
Yeah.
so small. As a low vision user, I'm like, okay, I have 3 fingers that I have to use to move around, and then the screen is super small. And this is like on the iPhone 4. And then were these Android devices that had much bigger screens. It was like back then, if you had a 5-inch screen, it was big, you know?
Oh yeah, that
Uh,
was humongous.
exactly. And so I actually did a lot of research and all this stuff. And I ended up with a Samsung Galaxy S4 after watching a lot of YouTube. And since then, I went so hardcore with like Android, and it actually did have Jelly Bean 4.2.2 and up. And so I was able to use the magnification gestures. And I'm like, look, I'm just using 1 finger and I can, move around the screen. This is so cool. And I would show
Yeah.
all the people in my family or people who had iPhones, oh, you have to use 3 fingers, but I only have to use one. And so all those reasons, and then I got a Samsung Note 4, and I was actually really invested in Samsung at the time. But then as I kind of learned more about Android and watched more videos and learned more about technology and Android in general, I actually gravitated to the Pixel devices. And now I had my husband had the Pixel first generation. I had a Pixel 2 XL, and now I have a Pixel 4a 5G. And I actually really prefer how I think it's more efficient. It's more smooth. It doesn't have any extra things. And yeah, you kind of lose out on some features, which are kind of cool with Samsung and other manufacturers, but at the same time, I find it to be a more smooth experience, at least in my experience. And the thing is that everybody's going to be different. Everybody's going to need different things or want different things and expect different things. So that's one thing that's great about Android, that you can choose what you want. And another thing is, like, for me, as I have grown with Android, the more I end up using a screen reader. Even as a low vision person, even if I can magnify something, I do find that, either my eyes get tired, or I'm just tired of reading, or like the light is just too bright, or even if it's outside and the sun is just glaring, I cannot see my phone. And so I ended up turning on TalkBack, and like my experience with Samsung and TalkBack was just a voice assistant. I was just not happy with it. So that's how I ended up with Pixel device. And I do want to like talk a little bit about the fact that not all Android phones are created equal. Can you why don't you share a little bit of your thoughts on that, Warren?
You know, indeed, not all Android devices are created equal. And, people say, hey, there's so much fragmentation in Android land. But, I've always argued that the fragmentation actually is the strength of Android. You take away that fragmentation, and Android is no good. Because I'm thinking of the iOS, the one I call the fruit veil. For instance, what you see is what you get. And to be honest with you, if I were in that world, I'll be bored to death. Because if I don't like how it looks, there's nothing I can do about it. But on Android, if you don't like the Samsung, like you turn away from Samsung to the Pixel, Carrie, once upon a time, I was a staunch believer in Samsung devices. And you talked about the Galaxy S4. It was my favorite Android device, one of my very favorite. And I used that thing for a couple of years. And I tell you, I defended Samsung to the core. But then, of course, in Android, you have different manufacturers. We probably have hundreds, literally hundreds of Android manufacturers. And so if you don't like what Sony is doing, or if you don't like what Google is doing, or Samsung is doing, or some other manufacturer is doing, you could go check another different manufacturer. And that's why I like about Android. Google doesn't have the SD card, and if you're a diehard SD card, you probably want to go with something like Sony devices, because Sony has the SD card, or you may want to go with Nokia, for example. And if you don't like the Google phone, for example, but you like what Samsung is doing, you can go with Samsung. And if you don't like what Samsung is doing, yet in the same breath you want something that looks like Google, but in the same breath you still want an SD card, then you go to something like Nokia, or that's Sony I just talked about. So that's why I like Android, because they are not built the same, and then each one try to put their own little spin on Android, and so it comes with different flavors. Like Samsung may have extra accessibility things into it that you wouldn't find elsewhere besides someone like LG.
I think in hardware terms as well, picking an Android device is much more conceptually similar to picking a Windows device, right? So specs are important. If you buy an Intel Celeron i3 with 2 gigs of RAM and no storage space to speak of, yours isn't going to do very well. It's going to be very slow. If you pick an Android device with a gig or 2 of RAM, software, that this is where we do diverge. So the comparison is only really relevant from hardware. But if you buy a low spec hardware Android device, TalkBack's not going to do very well either. Samsung phones, you're right, Carrie. Prior to Android 11, TalkBack didn't come installed. It was voice assistant, although you could put it on from the Play Store. So because of the fragmentation in hardware, it is more conceptually similar, I think, to buying a PC than iOS. There's a minimum standard of iPhone that will mean all of Apple things run. It's the same with a Mac. But Android, there isn't. As Austin said, there are low budget options for people who need those.
You see, I think that the fragmentation is something that can be both good and bad at the same time. Yes, you have more choice in the Android market. There's price, there's hardware, there's software to consider. But at the same time, I think that there are a lot of people out there that don't want to think about that. Like, I don't know what hardware is good. I don't know what software is good. I don't know, all the different specs that I think that probably all of us care about or value and even think about. Some people just want to have a phone and just want all the answers given to them. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And so with Apple devices, you kind of have that threshold of, okay, everything's going to be pretty much the same thing. You just have a lot fewer choices. And I think that kind of boils down to the type of person you are and what you expect your phone to do or what you want your phone for. And I think that's like one of the big differences between Android and iPhone users. A lot of iPhone users, they just say, okay, I just want it to work. I don't want to have to customize it. I don't want to have to change things. I don't want to have to think about that. So I think that it's a lot to do with the person and not just about the operating system too.
Well, that is true, Carrie. However, that notion of I just want it to work, those were those days, back in those days, that, people would like to think of Android as something that needs a lot of customization, or I need to have a lot of third party. We have progressed a lot, and it's not the same like it was years ago. And so most Android devices, taking them out of the box, will just work the way that they are intended for. But like you said, the fragmentation, people could see it as a problem because you don't know if I'm getting something that's going to work for me or not. And so it makes the buying process become such a little bit of a research. And that's why places like Blind Android Users comes into play. Our mailing list comes into play, so people could ask questions before they jump on an Android device. And yet, in the same breath, we could recommend based on the budget, and that's what is good for Android.
And I think as well that wanting it to work depends a little bit where you've come from. So let's say there are people who's just dipping their toe in the smartphone market now. Let's say they managed to somehow hang on to a Series 60 or Series 80 Symbian phone for this long. I don't know if that's even possible, but let's say they did.
Yeah,
and they switched to Android now. they will think it works, because they won't have any preconceptions about what a touchscreen smartphone can do in all likelihood. If someone switches from iOS to Android now, what they might mean by wanting Android to work is wanting Android to work a bit like my iPhone works, which obviously does take some customization, doesn't it? Like when I got mine, I'm like, there's nothing on my home screen, and if there is, it's nothing I want. Where am I?
Yeah.
Where are all my apps? I need to spend some time. And that's what making it work really meant, wasn't it? Making it work like the thing I used to work, like installing whatever that Windows Classic shell is on Windows 10. It's like so. So I think it depends where you come from, the extent to which Android does or does not need customizing particularly.
That is true, Ed. And because, you're coming from Symbian, you probably are going to have difficulty with a touchscreen device. And, you're still covered in Android because there are phones out there that behave like a Symbian device.
What is a Symbian device?
Nokia.
There you go,
the
Carrie.
old Nokia phones.
So
Showing our ages.
Back in the day, Carrie, you are just a youngin here. Back in the day, however, we have this thing called a Symbian phone from Nokia, and the OS is called Symbian. And so what it was is that you have to buy an additional screen reader called Talks. Or you could buy something from Code Factory called, what was it, Mobile Speak?
Mobile Speak, yeah. Or mobile accessibility at one point, yeah.
Yeah, Mobile Speak, and then mobile accessibility was for Android. And so with the Mobile Speak, it works on the Symbian or the Talks, and you install that. That thing is it was like $300. So just imagine you're buying a Nokia phone for $800 or whatever, and then you tag on another $300. It just got so pricey, and so blind people had no choice but had to do that if you want an accessible phone. So that was something that we had going for us, and now there are still people using that, and people who would want something that has those keys, and we have some phones like that on Android that would give them that same experience like they had on the Nokia Symbian phone.
Oh, Poppy, could you stop that thing? Oh,
maybe the puppy wants to be part of the podcast.
I'm so sorry.
So remembering the Symbian phone, I remember the Nokia 6600. That phone was made like a tank. You can drop it or do whatever you want, and nothing will happen to it.
Yeah, I had several of
but that sort of environment,
you've
got no... Yeah, you have no conception about what a touchscreen environment should or shouldn't be like. So you're not, when people switch, it doesn't matter which way, Android to iOS, iOS to Android. They have certain preconceptions about what that previous device used to do, and more importantly, the way it used to do it. So people get frustrated with the switch from either perspective. Whereas, actually Android, as Warren said, does work if you take it out of the box and don't have any particular preconceptions about what it should do.
I think that it definitely Android does work, but honestly, I'm going to be honest. I'm thinking about getting both. Well, I have an Android phone now, but I do want to have an iPhone as well, and just kind of be part of both worlds, because I honestly think that Android is great. I love Android, and that's always, well, probably always going to be my daily driver because of a lot of different reasons. One especially being that I can do more things that I want to do on Android because it's more open, and I can definitely customize it more to my liking. But I do find that, VoiceOver, I think, is just a much more mature screen reader option. I mean, TalkBack is definitely catching up, and especially in TalkBack, what is the latest TalkBack now? Is it 9?
9.1.
Yeah, 9.1. And it's just now that they're coming with multi-finger gestures. I mean, that's just one of the things, and I've been wanting those things since the beginning. And yeah, it's really cool that TalkBack has voice commands now too, and it has all these things that are coming out, but a lot of them VoiceOver has had for quite a while, and VoiceOver also has screen recognition. Love it, hate it. You keep it off. A lot of people I know keep it off. Sometimes they go back and forth. But there is just some more things you can do with VoiceOver. And I think that a lot of the time, people who want to use Android, it isn't just because of accessibility. It's because we like the platform of Android. We like the operating system of Android.
Yeah, Carrie, it's interesting you talked about, the customization, and then, of course, you talked about voiceover versus the TalkBack. Of course, it's been years now that we've been wanting, a lot of blind people have been wanting the multi-finger support gestures. And it's nice to see that we're finally getting those in Android, and yet in the same breath, it's not on every phone. And that would be a little bit of a drawback. However, I am optimistic this is going to be trickling down to just about most devices there, but it has to be an Android 11 supported device. But right now, at the moment, this 3-finger support or multi-finger support, 4-finger, whatever you want to call it, is only for Pixel devices, especially from Pixel 3. Pixel 3 up, and then on Samsung devices that have Samsung UI 3 or 3.0. So it's very limited at the time, for the time being. However, it's going to be something that comes to just about every phone running Android 11. And then we will close the gap there and give people what they want.
Yes, I think that, Google is working toward that, and we never know. Maybe in the future, all the iPhone users will say, "Oh, well, maybe they will even consider moving." But I think too, it's where people are invested, where they started. Like if they started an iPhone and now they have iTunes, they have Apple Music, they have like their whole family on iMessages, and they have like what do you call the speaker, the Apple one? I don't even know. They have like a MacBook,
the home, whatever.
The HomePod. Yeah.
The HomePod.
Exactly, the HomePod. There you go. And I think go ahead.
It's okay. I was going to say where you are invested. I mean, a few things help. Apple Music does actually exist on Android, oddly, because not all Apple apps do. So iTunes Movies doesn't, but there are things you can do about that. I think where you have a subscription service, because you're right, that investment thing's a problem. Where you've got a subscription service, it's relatively easy because you just download the Android app. What I would say as a tip, though, is if you've paid for an app on the iOS side and it exists on Android, if you do switch, just drop the app developer an email. Maybe they'll help you out, maybe they won't. I've had a few where they sent me redemption codes for the value of the Android app because they knew I'd bought it on iOS. I think as well with VoiceOver, now I don't know whose fault this is, whether it's Apple's or the third-party developers, but there's one thing about what the screen reader can do. What we really care though about is how it interacts with other apps. I don't know how many Facebook posts I've read about, VoiceOver's broken with Facebook again. I used to post them when I had an Apple device. In the 15 months I've had an Android phone, Facebook has broken TalkBack once and fixed it pretty quickly. Now, as I say, whether that's Apple's or Facebook's fault, I don't know. So there's one thing about a feature set. Another thing is how stable is that feature set?
I think that goes both ways, honestly, because there are some apps that aren't available on Android. And yes, there are alternatives, but there's apps that are available on Apple only. And also, I mean, there are going to be bugs and problems on each app. And I think that kind of type of thing with Facebook happens on both sides. And honestly, I don't really know that it's happens more on one or the other.
With VoiceOver on Facebook, it certainly does. With Talk, I don't know, magnification,
Facebook on TalkBack, but I'm going to push back a little bit on this because Pablo has an iPhone. Okay, Pablo has an iPhone, and on Facebook, when you're using an iPhone, it's so much easier to just swipe one time than on TalkBack, where you have to swipe multiple times to go through different posts. And that's kind of why a lot of the time I use my computer, because I just use JAWS or NVDA, and I just go through, JK, and use the keyboard commands to go through Facebook that way. Because like using my Android, it can be frustrating to have to swipe so many times, and that doesn't happen with every app. And I think that they're starting to improve that a little bit with some of the apps. I think, but I mean, especially also on YouTube. When you're on an iPhone, you just swipe and it goes to the next post, and you can swipe up and down to do certain actions. Whereas on Android, you have to swipe through every single element, which can be good and bad. Definitely annoying when you're scrolling through it, but if it's a lot easier to find like a specific action if you want to. So it's kind of, I don't know.
Well,
It's
Carrie,
both ways.
you could though. I want to kind of speak a little bit about your little pushback, which is understandable. But here's the other side of the coin, and the other side of the coin is the fact that if something is broken, TalkBack is not behaving well, the developer of the TalkBack screen reader will fix it. As to iOS, however, you have to wait till another cycle of an OS update. So actually, I think that those of us on Android are more blessed, because when you find issues that are not working for you, then TalkBack will developers will jump in and see that that thing gets fixed. So I
Well,
think I want to take the other side.
I mean, I think that it's great. First of all, that Google support is on Be My Eyes, and you can talk to them, and they can use the camera, like with the support, uh, and they can see what's happening on your device. I do wish Be My Eyes had a screen sharing option, but anyway, that's about Be My Eyes. But like, it's great that that's there, and I don't know why Apple doesn't jump on board with that, but probably because they want to do their own thing. And I mean, don't get me wrong, Warren, I love Android, and I'm like I said, I'm gonna stick with it. But I mean, I can recognize that there's just some things that are better on either platform, and it just, I think, depends on what you're looking for again, and what you want in the phone. um uh, so also, um I think that with TalkBack, yes, it's a separate app, and the developers can update it on their end just through the Play Store, instead of having to wait for a complete operating system update. But at the same time, there are things that take really long on both sides, Apple and Android, to just get fixed. And that can be frustrating, like whatever operating system you use.
That is true. That is absolutely true. However, Ed was given an example of the Facebook app. Now, if something was gone amiss with Facebook, and if it's coming from TalkBack, then that is reported to the TalkBack group, and they'll have a fix for that. See, that's what I'm talking about. So I think that it's nice to have that capability of fixing things independently on the screen reader, versus waiting for an OS system update that will fix that issue.
Yes, I'm still waiting for them to fix the Gboard dictation.
What is it you don't like about Gboard? Let's talk
No,
about Gboard.
well, okay. I mean, I've reported this, and I think we talked about this on Telegram too, about how when you use dictation with TalkBack, you can activate it, but you'll either have to wait for it to automatically stop, and the stop dictation button is not labeled. At least, I don't know, I'm using a Pixel 4a 5G. I don't know why it isn't labeled on my end, but also sometimes it types what TalkBack is writing, and it's not supposed to do that. but it does.
Okay, Carrie, so I see what you're talking about now. It used to be, and it's
Mhm.
Google. Google breaks its own things, and I'm sorry to say that coming from the evangelist himself. Now, Google breaks its own things, and this has to be one of those because once upon a time, once you start dictation and you're going along dictating something and you want to stop that dictation, all you needed to do was just to double tap anywhere and that will stop that dictation. But for some reason, someone thought we had it too good, went out and broke that thing that works so beautifully. Now, in the same breath, if you're getting TalkBack or if you're getting the dictation picking up what TalkBack is saying, then definitely you need to retrain your assistant because that should not happen at all. And if you want, while we're on this very podcast, I can demonstrate that and let TalkBack talk while I'm dictating something, or stop talking and let TalkBack talk, and you'll see that what TalkBack is saying is not going to be part of that dictation.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I think it just happens occasionally on my phone, and I'm not sure why. It doesn't always happen, but it has happened to me. And
Time to retrain that assistant or totally delete that voice model altogether.
And,
well,
and
I
is there a
guess
way
so.
to end dictation, Warren, now the double tap's gone? Is there a
The way
surefire
to end
way?
dictation is like you said, it's a pen, because after you tap on that voice input, then it changes into a different label, and it's always at that
Yes,
same spot. You have to find
and
it
it's
right above that
unlabeled.
letter P. Well, it is
Hmm.
labeled. It will say something like zero, whatever, something like that.
On my
It's
phone,
not.
it's not labeled, but that's
Oh, on your
okay.
phone, it's not labeled. That's odd.
No.
You have the same pixel that I have.
Oh,
You
So
might
I'm
have
really?
surprised.
identifiers turned on, maybe. You know, the label buttons if they're not labeled.
Carrie, could you try opting into maybe the beta channel of Gboard? Maybe that would help you a little bit. I don't know
Uh,
whether you have the subscription or you kind of
I
opted
mean,
into the beta or not.
one way that I have gotten around this now is I actually use and it's a pain. Um, I use what is it called? The speech recognition, and just say type and then say what I want to type. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of different ways. Like, people have told me you can just do the back gesture and it should stop it, or you can press a letter and then just delete it. I mean, there's other ways around it, but I do like I
No,
don't understand why
the old way used to be better. Yeah,
Google should just go back to the old way, or use the double tap for dictation, just like, iOS, or find another solution that works just as well. Either way.
definitely. I'm in agreement with you because it used to work so beautifully, and someone thought we were having too much fun. You guys are having too much fun. I'm going to make it a little bit difficult for you guys to do voice dictation. And that's not cool. It's not cool.
Yeah, absolutely not. But I mean, there's going to be bugs like that on any operating system. Like, even on iPhone, there's things that they don't fix for a very long time as well. So, we're just going on about this specific thing, but I think that there's a lot of things that happen on any operating system, whether it's a phone or a computer. Um, but I do want to talk a little bit about what, besides like removing accessibility from the table, what is it that you guys like about Android?
I like its flexibility. I like the fact that you can customize much more about it. You can install apps more akin to the way you can do it on a Windows or a Mac. Side loading has a bit of hysteria attached to it. I think obviously you need to be careful from where you do that. You shouldn't install dodgy apps from dodgy sources. But if you've ever installed JAWS or NVDA on Windows, you've side-loaded, right? So the fact you can do that, I think is a good thing.
That's true, Ed. Because, for instance, I always say, there was an app, a Bible app that I was after, and it wasn't available in my region. So my friend in the UK extracted the APK, sent me that APK, and now I have that Bible app. So that's one of the things that actually, you can't get me to change from, Android, because I like that capability of being able to get something that is not natively available in my region, but is available in a friend's region, and that friend would just simply give me that APK. I like that about
Yeah.
Android.
I have to say it's a lot easier to get an Apple App Store account in a different region than it is to get a Google Play Store account now. Aside from that, but at least Android gives you that ability to install stuff. You can customize much more of the phone. I think I like the fact that different apps can take advantage of other apps on your phone. So, if I have one speech engine on a phone, multiple apps can use it. Things like that. There's a lot more integration that you can achieve between the different apps, and obviously there are good reasons why iOS doesn't do that. I think I value that flexibility and ability to give yourself a more integrated experience between different stuff you might have on your phone.
I like the customization of Android, and if someone brings an Android phone which comes with an OS or a skin which is not accessible, they can just uninstall that Android and install a custom ROM. Now, granted, it's very technical and difficult, but definitely you can replace the version of Android on your phone and you can upgrade. You can also get a new Android version sometimes if you have a very old phone. So I like the customization. I like the amount of hardware that is available for Android, not like Apple, just 4 5 devices. There are like hundreds of devices to choose.
Yes, and again, just the hardware, the ability to have an SD card if you want, a microphone or a headphone jack if you want, like on a specific device, or having the ability. This is one of the things that I really value is being able to plug it into my PC and easily browse files. I don't know
Yeah,
how it
good
is on
point.
iPhone if it has changed, but last time that I tried with an Apple device, you have to go through iTunes, and that is just a pain.
Yeah, they have third-party utilities. I think Walter is one that will do it more easily on the
Mhm.
Apple side. But yeah, the fact you can have it come up as a drive, you put stuff in, and guess what? That stuff's where you meant it to be when you unplug it
Mhm.
again is a good thing.
You can't
Yes.
ask for anything better than that. It's just like plugging in my USB thumb drive. It's just a beautiful thing.
Yes, you just have a little adapter for just a regular USB drive and plug it in there, and you can use a file explorer, a regular file explorer, that you have on a computer or anything, and easily transfer whatever you want, and you have more control about where they go. Where do these files go, those folders, and where are they on the drive, unlike on Apple devices.
I always say if you can use your Windows computer, you can use Android, because think of it like the same experience. It's absolutely just about the same thing. I can't even say the word. You maneuver, your folders, structure, and files just the same as you would on your Windows. So if you know how to use your Windows Explorer, you'll be at home using an Android device.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, one of my last questions is, what do you wish? How do you wish Android could improve? Android accessibility, anything that falls under Android.
Two massive things for me. Braille is one, which won't come as any surprise. I mean, Braille on iOS is pretty atrocious. So for Android to be worse really is saying something. Like Google Braille back
So
really
I'm not
needs
a
a
Braille
core.
user, and I'm sure not everybody is. So could you share like what is it that's frustrating on iOS and what's worse on Android?
Well, the text input on iOS gets really quirky. The cursor can jump. It can do many other odd things. The translations are a bit flaky, particularly if you need to go and correct a letter at the end of a word, it can do strange things. I think it's been broken for a couple of iOS versions. Android, to me, it's significantly worse. The main problem is if you're reading a document, like if you're reading a Kindle book you have to touch the screen to get the page to advance. There are reputed to be some Braille displays where that doesn't happen. If that is the case, then someone needs to fix it to get it to work on all displays. The big thing for me, though, from a non-accessibility perspective, and I don't know if this can ever be fixed really, just because of how Android is, the vision Google has for it, is updates. So a new version of Android comes out, and I can't get it until my manufacturer has done a custom ROM, which it might not bother doing. Maybe my carrier's in the mix. Austin says, if someone else has produced a version of it, you can what's called ROM your device. But, on a Windows PC, Microsoft will release an update. Maybe it won't get to my device straight away, but even if it doesn't, I can force that update. Unless you're on a Pixel device or an Android One device, you're kind of left hanging until your manufacturer chooses to do something about it. So that's the software fragmentation. Maybe there's nothing that can ever happen about that, but for me, it's a bit of a drag.
Now, tagging on what Ed has just said, I'd always said, in as much as I don't care about Apple, there's one thing they got right, and that is that OS update. It's like clockwork, and when they do it, everybody gets it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, even with the Pixel phones coming from Google, I may get mine today, and Ed may not get his till maybe sometime next week or something crazy like that.
Really?
Now, that should not be at all, and that's been one of the issues that I've been kind of pounding or giving Android a black eye on because of this particular reason, and that would be one of my pet peeves with Android when it comes to OS update. However, there's kind of like getting better because now we have a 3-year update, and Samsung is like promising like 4-year update, and I think a couple of days ago another one, Realme also is going to be doing like a 3-year updates. But still, when it comes to accessibility issues, the Braille back, Braille is such a huge part on Android that is not very good, like Ed has said, and it has to do with that display support, Braille display support where you can read a book without having to touch your screen when you come to an end of a page, and that is not quite good right now. It's one of the drawbacks on Android, but I would have to say that I like the Braille keyboard, the TalkBack Braille keyboard. It works very well.
Now, for me, the things that must improve on Android is the updates. That is the big thing. And although Google has launched Project Treble and manufacturers are coming with Project Treble devices, that is devices with dual partitioning systems, so it becomes very easy to update. But the fragmentation of software is so much. Realme does their skins, OnePlus uses Oxygen OS, Xiaomi uses MIUI. It takes time to then, as new version of Android comes out, it takes time to design the skin or the OS for that new version and add features. And then on top of that, there is a carrier lock. If you have a carrier lock device, then your carrier has a hand in the update. So it's like very fragmented. That thing should improve on Android.
Yeah. Yannick, what's your pet peeve?
Yannick had to disappear. It's odd you say pet peeve because he had a pet emergency, so he's posted in private chat. But,
okay.
I wasn't looking at the chat.
It was an totally unintended pun. That was genius if you haven't read the chat.
Thank you, Ed.
That is.
Well, I could not agree more
that's a
about
60-yard
the
touchdown. Is that?
I'm sorry, Ed. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. I was finishing the joke on Warren's pun. You go.
But I would definitely agree with the updates. Yes, they are improving it on the Android side, but I think that iPhones and iOS devices definitely just have more longevity. There's people that are still using like iPhone 6 iPhone 7 and it still works and it's still fine. Maybe they had to change the battery, but a lot of the time I feel like the Android devices, the longer that you use them for, they don't have a very good value after a couple years, first of all, and also mm, they get slower, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if the manufacturers do that, and I mean iPhones do that too, but to the point that I feel sometimes it's just like, okay, I'm just gonna throw this out, and I want to have, especially on the Pixel, just as many updates as the iPhone has. Why can they not do that? I mean, that's not fair. I
Yeah,
wish
I mean,
that Google
iPhone has
would do
been
that.
it's been 5 years as standard, hasn't it? You know, 5
Yes.
years updates. Normally, I think there's one model that might not have got it, but they're back to 5.
But why
And it's
Google should match that? I'm sorry. At least
well,
with the Pixel phone, they should have 5 years.
Yes, Google should, Carrie, and I'm there with you because look at my Pixel 2 sitting there in the drawer and cannot get any more of the
Yes.
security patches, and stuck on Android 11. That thing came out in 2017. There's absolutely no reason why that Pixel phone shouldn't get Android 12. It's a very capable device, better than a lot of even 2019 or 2020 phones out there in some quarters, and so there's absolutely no reason why such a great phone wouldn't get Android 12. But it's Google. It's all about moolah. That's what I call it. And then, of course, you throw Qualcomm into the mix, and Qualcomm is another big white elephant in the room that we probably have to do another show on. I think they're the ones that are holding us back from getting those things. But then again, we have those roaming communities, and you could even have Android 11 on a phone from 2011. You can't even do better than that. Not even iOS can touch that.
The Galaxy S2, which
Yeah.
is 10 years old, has got Android 11.
Yep.
But that's the other issue with fragmentation, you see, because
Yeah.
there are so many phones. Your phone might never see a ROM in a romming community because it's one of the really obscure, one of the 350 billion phones Samsung released in 2019, and no one's bothered romming for it because, no one cares, right? It's yet another phone from Samsung. So yes, as long as it was a popular phone to start with, custom ROMs are a good thing, but it's like phone cases. Your phone might never see a ROM.
Well, actually, though, there are a lot of no-name phones out there that are getting these custom ROMs, and it's a wonder to see such things happening with even phones that are no-name phones out there. So it's just a matter of knowing where to look to find it, and that's a blessing in a disguise.
As somebody, okay, so in my community or in my family, people see me as somebody who knows technology, but honestly, I see myself as just about average and probably below a lot of people like you guys. You're talking about ROMs and all this, and I'm just like, I don't even want to do that because I know that I'll break my phone. It's just not. It's just not. I actually did that. I did try to follow these steps and ROM my or root. It wasn't even ROMing. It was just rooting my old tablet. It was a Samsung Note 10.1 2014 edition. And I mean, I had enough trouble doing that. And so I can't imagine having to ROM it, and you have to pick a specific ROM and you have to go through the community and that's okay. I'll leave that to Austin.
Yeah, and you don't have to root your device, to ROM it. Some devices, and the only reason why people would like to root their device is because they want to overclock it, or they want to have every access to it and remove certain components or certain software that they don't want on that device, and that would be where rooting would come in. Or else, if all one wants to do is to get a new OS, you don't have to root a device in order to be able to get that new OS on that old device.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think that Android is definitely a great operating system, and it's something I think that you never know if you're gonna like it or not if you don't try it, I think, and if you don't give it a chance. And I have seen people, like, they have made YouTube videos about oh, what happened when I switched from my iOS device to an Android device for a week or a month or something. And the thing is that there's a lot of things that you can't learn in 1 week. You're not going to get used to in 1 week, especially if you're coming from iOS. So, I mean, my husband, he actually used an iPhone since what, I think the iPhone 4, and he tried out the Pixel, and I mean, it took a while to adjust to Android, and I think it has a learning curve. And I think that definitely, again, as we've all talked about, Android has gotten so much better over the years, and I have hope and that it will continue to do so. So, did you guys have any other last comments about Android or anything that we've talked about so far?
I mean, I think that last point you've made is such a good one, because you get it a lot. And oh look, I've used this device for ages, and see what I made of this new one after 3 days. Like, you shouldn't ask Warren, Austin, or I to demonstrate an iOS device. Were we to switch, you should look on Apple bits. And similarly, someone who's a long-time Apple user, if they post a YouTube video going, "This is what I make of Android after a day and a half after my 15 years on iOS," well, it's not been out for 15 years. It's been out for 40. You shouldn't care. Like, go to a source where the user is competent to use whatever the device is that you're demonstrating. I mean, for me, I don't just want Android to continue making steps. I want Apple to continue making steps, because
Yes.
I think we need the best access across the most number of devices possible. And then, there's a guy in the UK who's an active Android user and a dealer of access technology, Steve Nutt, and he describes the choice now as a lifestyle one, not an accessibility one. And I think that's right. It's for speech users anyway. It is a lifestyle choice, not an accessibility one. But I want every manufacturer to put the most accessibility they can into their products, whether I use them or not.
Absolutely. And I think that having multiple platforms and multiple screen readers and multiple options actually pushes the companies to do better. I mean, that's what competition does, right?
It sure does. And I can't, for example, I'm a Windows user. And every time I try the Mac, I just can't make heads or tails out of it. So there's no way under heaven that I will go on there even for 6 months and say, hey, here's my review on the Mac, and this is what I don't like and all of that. I can't see me doing that, because I'm so used to my old ways of using my Windows, which is just like a second nature kind of thing. And then also when it comes to that choice, like Ed just talked about, Android is available everywhere in the world and things like that. So the better it gets, the better support it gets, the better accessibility it is for people around the world, most especially blind people around the world that don't have the money to buy an iPhone. So nowadays, as we're getting better and better with Android, like Steve, to text Steve's saying here, is it's a lifestyle choice versus accessibility. They are on par with each other when it comes to accessibility. So I'm glad to see the direction that Android has reached. Austin,
Yes.
any comments?
I also agree with everyone that it's best. And another thing that is best is, and both should improve, and Android should improve, Apple should improve, because we can have competition and we can have nice debates, which one to select. And it's more of a personal choice, but I would like people to at least try out Android for a month or 3 months or something and see how it is for them.
And definitely find people who know and use Android for as their daily driver, and don't just ask random people about Android when you do try it. Now, I want to go a little bit into the live chat here. We haven't really been talking to the people here. Thanks everybody for all your comments. And really quick, Adam is asking, what operating system is the Blackberry? Does the Blackberry use? Do you guys know?
They're on
The
Android these days,
BlackBerry,
aren't they?
Yeah, the BlackBerry. If you're getting an older BlackBerry, though, it is not running on Android. But as of 2015, BlackBerry jumped into Android with their very first Android device called the BlackBerry Priv, Priv. And of course, they stopped making Android devices in, I think it was 2018, with the Key 2, I believe. So, but there are like 4 or 6 BlackBerry Android powered devices out there. And if you're a keyboard lover, the Priv is one, the Key 1 and Key 2 are other ones that you could try. All those have physical key support.
And if anybody has any questions for Warren, Austin, and Ed, or for me, leave that in the chat. And if we missed a question, also maybe type it up again and send it on the live chat again, so that we'll definitely be able to take a look at it. Here, Lance says, it always seems as if iOS users are always swiping, but when using Android, you can explore by touch 70% of the time and just swipe to move your screen or change elements.
This is a complete myth, folks. I didn't swipe on iOS. I explored by touch. I can swipe on Android. I can also explore by touch.
I think that you can do both, yes.
You can do both on both devices. One does not lend itself to one more than the other. What you tend to find is that people who either don't care about screen visualization or who are newer to a device will swipe. People who want to be more efficient, who have a rough idea of where things are, will explore by touch. But one does not lend itself to one approach more than the other.
Yes.
I have always argued that, if you really want to enjoy your device, you need to use a combination of both. But what has happened is that most of the people that work or use iOS devices or even Android, a lot of people coming from that tradition, and that probably goes back to the old days, how it used to be. Probably it wasn't all that very accessible. And the only way to do is to swipe, or they call it the flick on iOS. And a lot of people got trapped in that and not realizing that they could just put their finger and move around and explore things like we do on Android. So it is good that people should use both. I've always said if you don't use that explore and all you're doing is swiping, you may miss some contextual part of what you're trying to read, and it's not good. So there are times that you have to use both. Some apps, you can get to certain things without swiping, and some apps, if you do swipe, you're going to skip over things, most especially if you're on a buying, shopping page or something. You want to read all those little fine prints. Don't be swiping.
Yes. And Ray says,
I think the other thing as well.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Ed.
Sorry, Carrie. Just on scrolling, I think Len mentioned the only reason you might flick between screens. That is different on iOS and Android, and what you prefer might vary. So iOS, if you do a 3-finger swipe up, will not move. It'll move in very carefully staged increments. If you're in Android and you're in a list and you do a 2-finger swipe up, you're going to jump down that list really quickly. It's much more sensitive, so you might find yourself getting lost, or you might find it much more efficient. So they do scroll differently.
Yeah, I think that you could do things differently, because they're on TalkBack. There's also the scroll next or scroll forward as well, similar to the 3-finger swipe up, but most people find it more efficient to do the 2-finger scrolling gesture. But the only thing with TalkBack, I will say, because I think part of the problem is because I'm a low vision user and I have my font and my display size cranked up as pretty much as high as it will go. Sometimes there are certain apps with TalkBack that you have to swipe to the right multiple times because it's scrolling, and it instead of going to right next to the next element, it will actually scroll down the screen. But I think that has to do with the fact that there's so little on my screen because there's the text is so large. So I don't know, as a predominantly screen reader users, have you guys noticed that if you swipe, sometimes it'll scroll instead of going to the next element? Next
No,
item.
Carrie, I think probably that could be owed to the fact that you're using magnification. Now, as someone who doesn't use magnification, I can't say for sure. But see, here's what I like on Android, for example. Now, if I'm in a list and I want to scroll up or scroll down, I don't have to just swipe with two fingers, but I put those two fingers down and slowly move it up if I want to not scroll, in big chunks
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of thing. So I like that. And with my iOS device, I maybe
Yeah,
because I'm the
can't do
user who
that.
doesn't know, I can do that. I just have to swipe up with three fingers to move, but I can like swipe just slowly on my Android device when I'm at the end of a list and just go to the next one there. But the
I will
swiping left or right doesn't change, doesn't do what you are talking, for
I
me
will
as a
say
screen
that
reader.
as a low vision user, when you're using iOS and you're doing the three fingers flick up and down, it's because it's not a smooth scrolling like on Android. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, where am I? Where am I? On the top of the screen, on the bottom of the screen? Okay, like with voiceover, could be easier, but as a low vision user, it's like, okay, I don't know. It scrolled up the whole screen, and now I don't know where I'm supposed to be at. So that's something that I get frustrated about with iOS. But Ray says that I do not think Android will ever have tight regulations like Apple does, unfortunately. So I'm not sure what he's talking about regulations.
Well, I think that that's a misnomer because you can't say that, Google just came out like last week, actually. If you're an app developer, there are certain criteria that you have to meet, and that is going to come into fruition as of next year. They're giving developers a little bit of a leeway here. Your app has to specify on the Play Store as to what it collects and what it doesn't collect, and Google is going to be very firm on that. I think there are like 5 things that Google has laid out. I think I posted that on our tweet a few days ago. So you can say that Google is taking all that very seriously.
And that's a
Yes.
sort of political viewpoint thing as well, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
like, do you want your device tightly regulated? I kind of don't. So,
No,
well,
I don't
good,
either.
good is my answer. Ray obviously does, which is absolutely respectable opinion. But
No, and I don't think Apple would want its device regulated either. No one would want that.
And there are rumors now saying that on the latest Apple iOS released, because of Apple's so strict privacy and privacy, they're not allowing apps to collect data. People using Facebook and Instagram are getting notifications that if you don't give us your data, we will have to. I mean, we are going to charge you. That this is just rumors. I don't know if it's true or
Um,
not.
I mean,
That would
that's
be
a
bad.
whole nother
That would be bad.
podcast there or stream. Lance says 90% of a 3 and 4 finger gestures are adding a finger to existing gestures and makes it more cumbersome, not as mobile or easy to use with one hand while carrying it. So I will say that like TalkBack, they have a lot of gestures that are single-handed, so you can use it with just one finger, like the back and forth gestures and the angle gestures. But and this used to be pretty true with the 3 and 4 finger gestures, or just in general. If you add another finger, it will register it as if you as like the regular gesture, just adding another finger when you're using TalkBack. But with the new multi-finger gestures, you can customize all those gestures to have different actions that TalkBack allows you to, like pausing and playing media, or changing the to Braille keyboard input, changing language, and all these other actions that you can assign to it. So I don't know that is as relevant as for the new talkback versions. Though I do know people who don't prefer the multi-finger gestures and they want to be able to use it one-handed. So I think it's good that both are available.
I think that's
I
right.
can-
I mean, the point of multi-finger gestures is obviously you can have more gestures, like you can do more stuff without needing to go into menus. That's the advantage of them. Obviously, there are trade-offs with that. Can all devices have them? Can you perform them as discreetly and easily one-handed as you could a single-finger gesture? Sorry, Warren, you were going to come in.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say that I actually see where Ray is coming from, because what that does is that you have to use both hands when you're using your device. And so I totally understand where he's coming from. However, now in Android 12, we have that one-handed mode. And I think they borrowed that from Samsung, and it's a truly cool feature. I can't wait for people to get a hold of that. I really like that on my Android 12 device, and looking forward to people getting that. So, but yes, it could be. I don't like all these 4 fingers. Now, what's the next thing? 5 fingers and put a couple toes on it. What's going on? Come on.
Well, I don't know why they don't have the 5-finger gestures. Honestly,
Yeah, if you can do it with toes, though, that will be a feat of engineering.
No.
Come on, Carrie.
No. Don't put your
5
stinky feet
fingers.
on.
Don't
phones.
even go there.
Well, I don't see why not. You can use 5 fingers.
I'm telling you, the 4 fingers that I use on TalkBack currently is to mute and unmute TalkBack. And even that, I wish I could use 2 fingers in either quadruple tapping or whatever.
But what
I
is
don't like the 4 fingers.
Why not? This is my question. Why not? What's wrong with the 4 fingers?
Well, with some screens are not quite as big, and some screens,
the thing is, with these gestures, you don't have to have your 4 fingers horizontal on the screen. You can have them vertical and move up.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah.
So yeah.
Oh my God.
Turn your wrist and run them the length of the phone rather than going across. You have more real estate that way. Yeah, that's what I do as well.
Diagonally too. So
yeah, that's what I do.
So, but see, that's what I don't want to do. I don't want to be, flipping my phone around like a duck,
No, your hand.
Just angle your wrist. Angle your wrist slightly. It's fine. You don't have to turn the phone.
Oh my gosh, you guys are so funny. That's beautiful, man.
Oh my goodness. But if anybody has any last minute questions, we can definitely go over that. Are you guys in the chat at all? Have you guys seen any questions here?
Ed, you are the one monitoring that. I wasn't monitoring the chat. That's shame on me.
It's okay. This is one of the things, like I always say, that it's a struggle for me to do the live chat, and I know like larger YouTubers, they have an extra person, even if they're sighted, because it's hard to keep track of the live chat and talk at the same time. And then when you put in a screen reader into it, it's like, okay, you have to listen to 2 things at the same time, and that's just really hard. But let's see, let's scroll to the bottom of the chat. Oh, there's Wolfsy and Harshid says, great stream, thank you. Ed, you good. Somebody says, Ed, you good. Okay, well, I think that we have definitely had a really fun, and it was such a pleasure to have all of you guys on. And if you're watching this, definitely check out the Blind Android Users podcast. All the links are down in the description to find their podcast and their YouTube channel, and you can also ask your podcast app of choice to play Blind Android Users podcast, or even ask your smart speaker to do that as well. Thank you so much, Warren, Austin, Ed, and Yannick too, for stopping by earlier. And just thank you for this awesome conversation about all things Android. Could you share more of your social media besides YouTube? I know you guys have, what is it, a Twitter? Could you say how people can get in
Austin,
touch?
you want to do that?
Yeah, so if people want to find us, they can obviously visit our website, that is blindandroidusers.com, and our YouTube channel. The link is in the description. They can also join our Telegram group. The link, we'll put it in the show notes if we can. Let's see. Or you can find the information on our website. They can join our mailing list. And if you want to buy a new Android device, or you have questions on Android, you can ask us in a mailing list and in the Telegram group. To join the mailing list, you can send a blank email to blind Android users plus subscribe at groups.io. You can follow us on Twitter, that is blind droid users. And that is it for our social media. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also turn on the notification so that when new videos are released, which will be tomorrow, you will get a lot of notifications.
Awesome. Well, thank you to everybody who came and watched the live stream. Thanks again for all of you wonderful people joining me on here. And I'll see you in the next video.